All right, everyone, welcome back to our next session. I hope you enjoyed some time at Coffee and Bagel just now and spent some time meeting other attendees and some ProLink staff as well. We'll be randomly selecting a participant as a winner for a $50 gift card, and the winner will be receiving an email from us in just a few minutes, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. At the end of this session, we're going to announce all of our Coffee and Bagel winners on the conference platform homepage. The session you have just joined is Custom Data Views in ProLink HFA with Alessandra Billy, our Business Analyst 2 here at ProLink Solutions. This session has an advanced/technical difficulty level. And before we start the session, I'd like to just go over a couple housekeeping notes in case you've missed them in our previous sessions. On the right side of your screen, you'll have access to a chat feature. The chat icon is on the right side. If you click on that, you'll be able to begin chatting with your fellow attendees. Feel free to post any questions or comments throughout the session that you have in the chat, and we'll do our best to provide responses or follow up with you individually after the session. Now, please note your posts will be visible to all other attendees. Also on the right-hand side, you'll notice there is a poll feature. Throughout the session, poll questions will be displayed one by one, and you'll have about 30 seconds to respond to those, after which we'll post the poll questions for everybody to see, and we highly encourage some participation with that. Now, I'd like to hand things off to Alessandra. So Alessandra, if you could please take things away.
Thank you, Alexis. I am going to use screen. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alessandra Billy, and we're going to be talking about custom data views today. So kind of going through what are custom data views, how do you build one, and then how to bring that script that you built into ProLink. So just to get kind of a baseline of where everyone's at, we are going to start off with a poll question. What is your experience level with SQL? Have you never seen it, never touched it? You have no SQL experience. You know some things. You have a little bit of SQL experience. You have extensive SQL experience. You have a lot of knowledge of different functions and what you can do in there. And option D, you have SQL experience and have created custom data views already. So I'll give you about a minute or 30 seconds to answer that.
You can go and click to the next slide.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. So it looks like a lot of people don't have a lot of SQL experience or have some SQL experience. That's okay. We'll kind of take this from a baseline level and explain to you how you can do it and how to design these data views and kind of put you in the right foot, and maybe then you can learn a little bit of SQL yourself or get some help from someone who does know it, but it'll get you knowledgeable about what you can do in the system and how to kind of set that up and be prepared to start creating those scripts. So what are custom data views? I'm sure many of you have seen in our system data views, which allow you to look into one function of HFA and see all the different data points in there. And maybe you've even worked with those in making your own data views and adding fields or putting advanced filters on them already. So what does custom data views do that you're not already getting from data views? So custom data views are SQL queries that you can then put into ProLink to get a wider variety of data than what you can get from just the regular data views that you have, and it gives you a lot more functionality than what you can do within the regular data views. So here you can join database tables. So you can link your dev projects and TCA projects if they are connected. You can pull information from portfolio properties or loans and kind of pull information from all these different database tables. You can perform calculations. So if you want to do some math, maybe you want to know what your revenue is minus some different values in your financials, or if you want to, I know some of our clients have done surplus cash, and that's a little bit of the example that we're going to use today. It also allows you to do some summaries, so you can merge data together, put multiple fields together, or any other aggregations that you would like to do. And then once you publish them, anyone within your system can access them. So everyone can see them and be able to utilize them. And then, like you can do with data views as well, individual users are then able to create their own views. So they can use custom filters, sorting, showing and hiding columns, showing and hiding fields. They can create their own views based off your custom data view as well. And that can all be done within ProLink, no SQL knowledge required. So there are a few rules when you're creating your script as to how to create data views. So a lot of these rules, and I'll give you reasons why for them, it's just to make sure that your script works within our system. So it must start out with a select statement. The point of a data view is to show you all of the data that you want to see. We can't just create that's how we're going to pull that information in. We also don't allow select all because that would bring in a ton of data and there's a ton of fields on all of these tables. So we want to really be mindful of which fields are important and also not creating a huge data view because those will take a longer time to load as well. There's also SQL commands that aren't able to be utilized, such as create, update, order by, or making temporary tables. A lot of these are because it's stuff you can do within ProLink already, and we don't want to mess with that, right? So as you may know, in data views, you can sort that and filter it however you would like. And you can set your initial filters in your views as well. So we don't allow order by in the script so that that functionality still works in ProLink and each user can do it as they would like. And then in terms of create and update, we don't want to be creating new data or changing data every time someone clicks into that data view. We want to make sure that the data is correct and that it's not being modified as people just view it. So it's just a select statement to pull all of the information that you want in. Then every column must have a name, just so that we know what to call it at the top when you see it, and how to bring it in and out so you know what kind of information you're working with. And the name doesn't need to have spaces. I will go over this in a little bit, but ProLink will add your spaces back in, and I will show you how. So the display name will still have spaces. That's not something you need to worry about. But when you are setting the name for your fields, you cannot put spaces in the name. And then your first column has to be a unique integer data type ID, aliased as row ID. So a lot of times you'll see this as HFA number, or in this case, we're going to use loan ID. So you can see usually it's the ID number because we know that's going to be unique, and you're not going to see this in the data view. So that just allows for our functions to work properly within ProLink. And then any columns that could be considered personal identifiable information, social security number, passwords, we cannot allow that to be in a data view because we are not controlling who is able to view this individually, and it's available for the entire team to be able to see this. So we do limit that information for security reasons. So just a quick little refresh, see if everyone was paying attention. We're going to do our second poll question. Which one are you allowed to do in custom data views? Are you allowed to use the create function, use the aggregate function, use the star key, or use spaces in a column name.
Okay, you can go ahead and click to the next slide, Alessandra.
Great, thank you, Sam. Okay, it looks like a little over half of you got that correct. You can use aggregate functions, which is pretty great for people who have not done a ton of SQL before. So as a reminder, we don't want to use the create function because that is adding new data to the database whenever you run it. So that is creating data, and we don't want to do that every single time we're loading this data view to see it. Similarly, the star function just gives us way too much data, and the spaces we can't see in a column name. Originally, I know that's a bit confusing because when you go in, you can see them, but those can't be in your SQL column names. But that was a great job. So we're going to move into actually building your custom data views. So this is creating that script that you're going to then upload into ProLink. We highly recommend everyone uses their own SQL Server Management Studio or wherever else you prefer to write code versus trying to do it in ProLink. You are able to do it in there, but it might be a little harder to test and see where your fields are that way and make sure that your functions are all correct. I know half the time I type in the wrong word for what I want to do. So SQL Server Management Studio will give me a nice little error and tell me that what I'm trying to do isn't right and I need to change the word. So the first step to building your custom data view is determining the data. So what business problem are you trying to solve by creating this custom data view? A lot of times we see that there's an existing report that you're running and maybe it's a little easier to do in a data view because you can then just export it and you don't need to manually pull information from multiple different places. So we'll see that, and that makes it a little bit easier to determine your data because you already know which fields you have and which fields you need. But maybe there's just a business problem you want to solve. So in this one, we're going to look at the surplus cash loans. So maybe you want to calculate how your surplus cash is done, or you want to see what percentage of your properties are in a certain status or stage. You can do all sorts of things here. So really defining what your business problem is, and then you're going to list out what fields you need in order to figure that out. So what do you want to see in your data view in order to have the information that you need for this report or a view or solve your business problem. So I'm going to pull in a few fields here. So I'm doing HFA number and property name because those are great identifying fields. You'll see these a lot in custom data views and even just our regular data views. They're very helpful in identifying what property or what HFA you're looking at. So we pull those in a lot of times, and you'll see these on a lot of tables. Then what address is that at? Also a great field for identifying and potentially filtering on as well. Then since we are looking at loans, we're going to do the loan number and then the current loan balance and then the fiscal year that this is related to. We're going to do a little permutation on revenue to get the revenue number and also their expense number, just to give us a bit of information. So after you figure out what kind of data you need, you're going to go into your database or wherever all your information for ProLink HFA is stored and figure out where that is, what data fields it's related, and if you need any permutations to kind of get what you want here. So HFA number, you'll see this on a lot of different tables. But for now, we're going to pull this from that portfolio properties table because I already see that I'm pulling this in. And you can skip around if it's easier to figure out where your table is. Property name, we're also going to pull that from the portfolio properties table. Then address, we care about both the address line and the city. So we're going to pull in both of these fields. And in this situation, I'm going to just have it as 2 fields. So I put that under my permutations that I need to do. In some situations, it may be helpful to concatenate these 2 into 1 field. So that's something you could do here as well. And we found this on the portfolio properties table. Then we have the loan number, that's just a straight field as it is, and the loan. Then we want to pull the current balance, which means we need to look for what the most recent balance is on this loan balance history table. So we want whatever is the most current one. We don't necessarily want to see the current balance from when it was 4 months ago, right? So we're pulling the most recent one. And then for fiscal year, we're just pulling it in as is from our financials. And then revenue, I want to subtract grant income. Maybe that's not affecting my revenue. So I want to see what their revenue is without the grant income. So we're going to do a little math here and subtract out that grant income. And then for expense, we're just going to pull that in as it is. So, and those 2 are both from our financial line item table. So then once I have all of this set out, I'm going to start looking at how can I put these tables together? What are the fields that match on both this portfolio properties table and the loan table or the loan balance history table? What can I use to link these together so it knows what lines of the tables match up with each other? So what we're really going to use here, we found this portfolio property loan table, and this is a great linker table. What this has is it has all of the portfolio properties and it lists all the loans associated with them as well. So I can have a one-to-one match with my loans. There may be a couple, right? But we'll know what all the loans, what portfolio property they're on. So we can get all of this portfolio property table and this loan table as well. And it even has information about the financials on there, which is exactly what we were looking for. So once we find that table that we're going to build off of, and honestly, a lot of times it's just going to be one of these portfolio properties or loan. You don't necessarily need a linker table, but in this situation, it was just helpful for what we were doing. So on here, we know that the ID of the portfolio property loan is going to link to that HFA number on portfolio properties. Since we're pulling in the same table, we know that that's the same linker for the first 3. And then loan, this also, we can just use the loan ID, the ID from loan, and link that to your portfolio property loan table as well. And then same with that loan balance history, we're going to actually use this loan ID to link with this loan balance history item. So that's how those will link together. And then financial, we're going to use that portfolio property ID that's on here, which is how we linked to this. And then the fiscal year that we're looking for. And then on the financial line item, the financial table has an ID for the financial line item. So we'll just look for the line items for this year that we would like. So a couple other things you want to think about when you're doing this as well, mainly in your permutation side, is converting, if you want to convert any dates, because when you are in SQL, all the values are saved as date times. So a lot of times we'll see that there's going to be a date in there and then it's at midnight because it's just, that's what it's automatically set to in the system. So you may need to convert your dates to be just the date portion, or sometimes I even just pull the year or the month or the day, or I want those in separate fields so that it makes it easier for me to filter or do something with. You can still filter when it's all together, but maybe there's something I'm doing that I would like just the year for. And then if your fields have a lot of nulls and maybe you want that to be something different, you can also use like an is null function and that lets you modify those null values to NA or whatever else you would like to see in that situation. And then the last thing to kind of keep in mind is we have two data types that are a little funky when you're doing the tables and the connections. So pick lists do have their own tables. It will be a field in your table, but it'll give you that ID number. And to get the word, you do have to link it to join in the table to get what the actual value of that ID is. And I will show you an example of that in a couple slides. And then UDFs do have their own table as well. And that's the user defined field values. And for that, you need to pull in the FKID for the object it's on and the data type to find the field. So if it's a numeric value, then it's going to be under the numeric value column or the string value column. That's a little more complicated, though. So we're going to skip that for now. Just wanted to bring it up. So if that's something that you are looking into, we can definitely provide you some resources on that. So now that we know what data we want, we're going to start to actually write the script. So I'm going to start with pulling in the tables that I need, right? So first line that you see here, we're going to start from that portfolio property loan table because that was what we had everything linked on. So we want to pull from this loan table, and then we're going to left join loan on, that's the name of that loan table, on the ID of loan equals this table's loan ID. So wherever those two are equal, you're going to put all the data from one table and put all the data from the other table just in a nice little line there. So it knows that those two fields match up and we can merge them into one line. We do use left joins because that tells you that we want to link everything on this table. So there's left joins, there's right joins, there's all sorts of joins. We highly recommend left joins because what that's going to do is it's not going to give you a ton of extra data that you don't need. So you're not bringing in every single loan that doesn't have a portfolio property loan associated with it, or whatever else you're bringing in, especially when we bring in like portfolio property. You don't want all of the extra information from every portfolio property that you have to just be on its own and then all the loan information be null. You want to make sure that there's actually data there that you can join to, and it will only bring in data that has a match. So that's what left join is doing. It's looking at everything in portfolio property loan and only bringing in stuff on loan that has a match to something in the portfolio property loan. Whereas other types of loans may look at just the loan table and bring in only stuff from portfolio property loan, or it brings in both of everything and it matches it up the best it can do. So we want to make sure we're using left joins because otherwise, you're going to run into issues with your data and especially with row ID because that does need a unique value. And if all of a sudden we have fields coming in from all different tables and they're not filled in everywhere, your loan ID probably won't have fields everywhere. So then kind of moving into a little bit more of a complicated join, this is what we're going to do for that balance history date. So this is a little bit more complex, and basically what it's doing is it's having its own little select statement in, and we're just joining in this little bit of data into all of it. So instead of pulling in the entirety of loan balance history, I'm only pulling in a little bit. So what I'm doing here is I'm selecting just the fields I want from this table. So I'm not pulling in every single field that this table has. I know that I'm only going to look at the latest date, this updated date, and the loan ID, because I'm going to need that in order to be able to link. So I'm just selecting those two fields. from my loan balance history, and then I'm grouping this by loan ID. So basically what this section is doing is it's saying that tell me what the maximum date, what's the latest date in this loan balance history for each loan ID. So this is going to tell me the latest date that happened in this balance history for every single loan. So then I can use that to link it and just pull the current balance where this date is equal. So you can do all sorts of things in here. You can see that I'm using kind of a calculated field with this max. You can do math in here. So I can say updated date plus, or I don't know, current balance plus previous balance and as a field name. You can do whatever calculations you would want. You can add where clauses to kind of filter this out as well. And so you're kind of just making this own little table, and then you join it the same way you join it on here. So I'm calling this table latest link because this will give me the latest date that the loan balance history was updated, and I'm going to use that as a linker table to get the current balance. And then we're joining it on latest link. That's what I called my new table. The loan ID that we got from here equals the portfolio property loans loan ID. So that's how that is all joined in. And then at the top, we're going to pull in all those fields. And once you have all of this, it's a lot easier, right? So you can see I did join in my extra tables that we didn't talk about. So you can see like here, I used that latest link, latest date on the latest balance table that I'm pulling in from loan balance history to get the most updated date so I can get our current balance from there. So I pulled in all of this information on those linkers that we talked about a few tables before. So where we talked about how it's going to go together, that's what all of these ons are. And you can do a couple of them to make sure that you're getting exactly what you need. So like I'm here, I'm also filtering to make sure our fiscal year is the correct year that we want, or it's null, just to get both any information. And then super easy from there, we're just putting in all of our fields that we already know what we want. We're doing loan ID as row ID, and then portfolio properties dot HFA number, property name, all those things we talked about, we just write them all out. And then if I want it to have a name, we're putting as, and then whatever I want that name to be. So when I run this, it's going to give me a table, and the name of this column that's calculated with revenue minus grant income is going to be called revenue. So in these situations, you're going to want to use camel case when you are naming them because we can't use spaces. So camel case just means you squish all the words together, and then the next word, you're going to capitalize that first letter right here. So capital P for property and then capital N for name with no spaces in between. When you bring that into ProLink, it'll see that and add the space for you. So that's super nice. So that's not something you have to worry about you're going to see all the time, but it will filter that out for you. And then for row ID, remember, you're not going to see this. So if loan ID is something, a field that you're going to want to see, you can add it again. You're not limited to only adding a field once. So you are able to put loan ID as row ID and then loan ID as loan ID if that's something that you would like. In this situation, you probably wouldn't because you have your loan number down here, and that's probably more of a reference point. So in situations like this, loan ID works great. But if you're using HFA number, maybe that is something that you're going to want to utilize twice. And if you ever run into an issue where you don't know what to do for your row ID, I know I've had to do some complicated things in the past where I concatenate an ID and a date to try and get, and then cast it as an int to try and get it to work. You can always reach out to us and we are happy to help you with that as well. If you're doing math in here, so we have the revenue minus the grant income just as regular math. I know sometimes it can be a little bit of a pain that you can't use the star because that does limit multiplication. We do have ways around that, so feel free to reach out to us on that end as well. And then note down here as well, you can see I joined in this nice little pick list table so you could see it. For the loan structure, we can see we pulled this loan structure ID from our loan table, and then that equals the loan structure ID here. And then I can just pull the name from loan structure. Now that is on here as well. So once you have that all written out, if you want to filter your script as a whole, this is where you can do that. At the end of this, we're going to filter this for where that loan structure equals surplus cash, because that's what we're only looking at those surplus cash loans. You can do this in many different ways depending on what you're looking for, and this applies to all of your data in this whole script. So it reduces the amount of data which you can see, and maybe this is something where you think about doing on here, or maybe that's something you think about doing within ProLink. So you can apply filters within ProLink to get the data you want, or even using our View Manager advanced filter there. You can filter out the fields to get what you're looking for there as well, if maybe you don't want it to be as permanent. So once that's all done, your script is written and you're going to start testing. So testing your SQL script is important to make sure that it works, there's no errors, and you're getting the correct results that you were expecting. So we want to make sure that there's no unexpected data and everything you were expecting is present. And then also do a quick look over to make sure that your results return a unique row ID integer for each row of data. You will get errors in ProLink if they aren't unique, and you might miss data or anything along those lines. So make sure you are testing your script before you bring it into ProLink to make sure it's running how you expect it to and functioning correctly. So now that you are ready to do it, we are bringing your script into ProLink. So what you're going to do here in your navigation, you're going to go into ProLink, and then you're going to go over to this admin panel in data views and click new. So that'll bring you to a screen that looks like this, except this will be blank. I already put this in here, right? So we're going to give your view a name. So this page title is going to be a display name. That's going to be what you see and how you choose it. So we're calling this surplus cash loans since it's a list of all the surplus cash loans. And then here under view name, you're just going to give it more of a technical name. These all need to be unique names without spaces. So in this situation, I just did surplus cash loans without spaces, still in that camel case, so it's easier to read. You don't have to do camel case here. I just find it a little bit easier to read. So I brought in, you can ignore this dvc.view underscore. That will be done automatically for you. You can just call it what you want. You don't need to worry about that. And then you have to determine if you want to run this as an ETL or if you want to run this at just as is. So ETLs do run overnight to update the data versus otherwise it's just pulling the data that's in the system currently. And then if you want to add a description here, you're welcome to do that. And we're going to leave status as draft for a minute. We're going to paste our data in, click save. It will gray out these fields for you. And then once that's all good, this button will appear and you'll click validate/test and save. And then below this will pop up your table. And there you can see it with your data in the system and make sure that it looks right. So verify that what data you're expecting to is showing up there, but note that you might not see every single table or every single column depending on how wide it is. It's only going to show you however many fit. on here, and it's only going to show you the first few lines. So don't expect to see hundreds of lines of data. You're just going to see whatever data happened to be first when the script ran it, basically. And then once you think that's good, you're going to change this status to published and then save once more, and that will publish it. Do note though, if you do select to run it as an ETL, you are going to have to wait overnight for it to publish. So once that ETL runs at night, it will publish it the next day and you'll be able to move on to the next step. If you did not use ETL, then you can just publish it then and it'll automatically pull up these columns. So this has a main tab right here. Once you hit save, these 3 columns will appear as well. So here you can do any updating you want to your fields. So this lists all the fields that it brought in from your script. And here you can change things. So maybe I don't want it to say address 1 and I just want it to say address. I can click on this and then change the column caption to be whatever I would like it to see. Maybe it didn't put the spaces in how I expect it to. So you can see it does pretty good HFA number, fiscal year. It put my spaces in pretty well, but sometimes if there's a lot of numbers or something in the column, it struggles a little bit more, and we do go in and fix that. And then over here, you can also change what format it brings those numbers in as well. So some things you can do here, or things that I'm commonly finding myself changing here are year fields. Sometimes if I'm bringing in just a year field, ProLink thinks that it's a number, so it'll put a comma in there, and typically we don't do 2,025. We'll just do 2025 without the comma. So I'll format it and change that. You can change the number of decimal points that you have. So you can see these two have decimal points, whereas these don't. So you're able to modify that as you'd like. And date fields are actually a great one to look into here because you can modify what it looks like. Do you want the number dates with the slashes? Do you want it to be written out? There's all sorts of options in here for how you want your date fields to look. And then once you do that, you can manage your data view. So this is the same way that you're managing any other data view that you have in ProLink. So you're going to go to your data view, then you click View Manager in the top navigation, and then you can add your fields, remove fields if you decided you brought over too many. There's this advanced filter that I was talking about earlier. I will note the custom data view, when you originally bring it in, will only bring your first like 10, 15 columns. So you are going to need to come in here and click the rest of your columns and click Add. So make sure you do that before you start sending it off to people and letting them know that this is ready to go. Make sure you set your view so that you have all of them, and you can even change the order of them in here. Your script is really just to pull all of your data in to start with, and then you can do any modifications that you really want within ProLink. And then how to get to it once you've brought it all in and everything. So you can find custom data views at the top of this data views navigation here. So you can see all of the other data views down below it. We're just going to click on this custom data views item. And then you can click on surplus cash loans because that's the one we created, or whichever other data view that you would like to be using. Once you open that up, it's a regular data view. You can modify the data however you would like, filter, sort, group like you do with every other data view. You can export it to Excel, any of those things that you would do on a data view, and anyone on your team is able to do that for you. So now I'd like to open it up for questions, and I'd really love to have a discussion as well about what you see utilizing these data views for, or how is your team currently utilizing data views? Are there any ideas? Kind of give each other thoughts, or if there's any questions in the chat.
Hi, Alessandra. Currently, there are no outstanding questions. We know that this is more of an advanced session, so we strongly encourage you guys to share any questions you may have in the chat, and Alessandra can address them now.
Yeah, and even if it's more of a SQL question, not necessarily a ProLink question, I'm happy to help you out.
So from Rebecca Isom, what does
Yeah.
ETL mean again?
Yeah, so basically what that is it's a function that runs overnight to update your data. We see it on like financials and stuff like that. Sometimes you want it to run overnight, or some of the utilities. So that data isn't necessarily available right away. So that's just so you're getting it a nightly update.
Okay, great. I'm not seeing any other questions at the moment.
Does anyone have any ideas of how they would like to use it, or things that they're thinking could be a good function, or that they feel like they would love to have?
Yeah, I'm currently not seeing any additional responses. This is more of a comment from Rebecca Isom. Again, we have a number of dashboards that need to be populated using custom data views, and we have about 5 of them in process right now.
Awesome. Yeah, they're a great feature too. It sounds like you're using custom data views and then exporting to Excel and then uploading to your dashboards potentially. So that can be a great function. We've seen a lot of reporting and stuff like that being utilized.
Yep, if no one else has any questions, we may end the session just a bit early.
Yeah. And thank you all for attending and listening to my session on custom data views. Have a great afternoon, and I'll pass it back to Alexis.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alessandra. Thank you everybody for joining us for this session. We hope you found great value in what was covered today and all of our sessions overall. As a final reminder, a copy of our PowerPoint is available here in the slide session detail screen. And this is going to conclude our day 1 of ProLink Technology Live. Thank you for everyone attending. Reminder, day 2 will begin at 11 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to start our sessions tomorrow with a Perform Inspect session led by Connor McKenna. That was going to be followed by configuring dev for home and new funding programs with Kelly Encinas, and then portfolio property data utility training with Jessica Brinton. And we're going to conclude the day with a LIHTC training with Sarah Supernat again. So if you head back to our conference homepage, you'll see the 3 winners of our Starbucks gift cards today. We have Brittany with Rhode Island Housing, Rebecca Becca with Oregon, and Kranti with Oregon as well. So thank you guys so much for joining our coffee and bagels. It was nice chatting with you guys and just being able to catch up a little bit. So enjoy some delicious coffee on ProLink. And tomorrow we encourage everybody to participate in Coffee Bagels again. We're going to be running the same program where you can communicate with us and you have an opportunity to win a $50 Starbucks gift card. So, all right, everybody have a great rest of your evening, and we will see you tomorrow. And thank you again for joining us for ProLink Technology Live.